So we have a lot to get to this hour, a lot to get to. Let us start out really quick with a couple of TransCanada Keystone Tarsands pipeline updates. First, we were thinking that a decision was going to be coming from the State Department and President Barack Obama in the next coming weeks. We thought it was going to be pretty soon, but it has now been reported that the decision will not be made until April at the earliest. So there you go. That is neither good news or bad news. It is just news. It will not be coming down until at least April. There is another update, though. There's another update, and unfortunately, it is not a positive update. In my home state of Nebraska, you'll remember I am, of course, from Omaha, Nebraska. In my home state of Nebraska, the governor, Dave Heineman, has in fact approved the pipeline for the state of Nebraska. You may remember back in the early coverage of the pipeline, we've been talking about the pipeline for forever. In the early coverage of this, it was actually Governor Heineman, who is a Republican, who in fact asked President Barack Obama to deny the permit for the pipeline because the pipeline, which has a long history of leaking, these exact type of tar sands pipelines have a long horrible history of leaking. TransCanada has a horrible history of safety on these pipelines. The fact was the pipeline crossed the Ogallala Aquifer in the state of Nebraska, the aquifer that supplies a great deal of the water for all of the plain states, and therefore it's actually the main supplier of water for a large portion of our nation's food supply. It is a very, very important aquifer. A great deal, so much of our food comes from the plain states, comes from the Midwest, and this pipeline still has, current tense, the horrible potential of contaminating a giant water supply. And when Heineman did it, I gave him total credit. It was a brave move, standing up to this foreign corporation, standing up to dirty energy. It is unfortunately now a move that has ceased. Governor Heineman has flip-flopped and has approved the pipeline in Nebraska, which still does cross the aquifer. Our friends at Bold, Nebraska are trying to, they're trying to challenge it in the courts. There is lawsuits pending, but there's no doubt about it. This is a setback. It is a bad sign. This is a bad sign, no doubt about it. So Nebraska listeners, and we do have Nebraska listeners, namely it's my relatives and my friends back home in Nebraska. I wanted to let you know, there is, in fact, a protest vigil that is going to be held at Governor Heineman's mansion in Lincoln, Nebraska on January the 29th. You can and should make it out there for this vigil. You should do it. You can find out all the details at boldnebraska.org. Again, great progressives in Nebraska, boldnebraska.org. If you can make it out on the 29th to this vigil, go out there, show the governor that this is the wrong move for your state and for your friends who live in your state. And here's the deal. If you listen to the show, we cover this story consistently, and we're going to continue to cover it. You should be aware that 350.org and tens of thousands of activists are planning on holding a rally at the White House in Washington, D.C. on February 17th to demand that President Obama stop this pipeline. And so if you're anywhere near Washington, D.C., if you can make it to Washington, D.C. on February 17th, you should. This is a big deal, folks. This is a big deal. And I'll give you one last bit of news on this. I've said before that I do think Barack Obama is going to approve the pipeline. Again, I hope that I am wrong. I pray that I am wrong, and I'm an atheist, so when I pray, it means something. But I think he's going to approve it. And along with that February 17th rally, a sort of big story happened where the Sierra Club, the environmental group, has announced that it plans to participate in civil disobedience to try to stop the pipeline. I gotta say, folks, that is actually a big deal, and let me explain. So, Well, the Sierra Club does, granted, lots of really great environmental stuff. While they do a lot of really good work, the Sierra Club is not exactly, how do I put this nicely, a radical organization, if you know what I mean. They're an organization that has been around apparently for 120 years, and they have never before advocated going beyond the law. They're not people who are breaking the law, doing civil disobedience. They're doing petitions, they're doing rallies, they're doing marches, and those things are important, don't get me wrong, but until now, they've never advocated doing civil disobedience. Well, now they are. Now they are. They are doing it. They are advocating it to stop the pipeline that President Barack Obama is probably going to approve. And if he does approve it, like I think he will, unfortunately, civil disobedience is what it's going to take to stop it. Folks getting arrested, like the Tarsands blockaders that we talk about all the time down in Texas, and the blockaders who were here recently in Massachusetts, who glued themselves to each other. If a big mainstream environmental group like the Sierra Club is saying that, hey, we are willing to get arrested to stop this planet-destroying pipeline, that's positive news, folks, and that's big news, and it's big news that the environmental movement and all the environmental advocates and activists are working together on this. That is huge.